Hey, welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. A slightly different project on the table today. I found this lawnmower, a Yardworks electric lawnmower, cordless mower, thrown in the garbage. And it seemed to me that with an electric mower, particularly this particular kind of mower, there's very little that can go wrong with it. It's got an electric motor, a switch, some contacts, and a battery. So I brought it home just to have a little look at it. Thought maybe I could use the motor for something. And thought, well, let's just test it, see what's wrong with it. So took it apart, took the cover off it, and then I have a little this is a lawnmower that took a 24 volt lead acid battery. And the battery was missing, and what I have read online from people that own these mowers is that the battery would eventually die, and it wouldn't keep a charge the way a lithium battery would in newer mowers. So these people are starting to abandon these in a hurry. Now I have a little battery pack that I made up a little while ago with some balance leads here and it's a 24 volt, nominally 24 volt, but they're 25 point something volts. And I thought, well, let me just run a jumper from my connector to this Anderson connector here and see if it works. Guess what? It works. The only thing wrong with this is that it's missing a battery. So today, I'm going to make a big battery. I got a bunch of 18650 cells. I've got about 500 of these things. Just begging for a project like this. So that's what we're up to today. Given the space of this cavity here, I've come to the conclusion that I can probably put together a battery pack that will take about 120 cells. That'll give me 7 in series and 18 parallel. So a 7S 18P pack. It'll give me the 25 volts that I want. That's the 7 in series. And the amperage that I'm going to get depends on ultimately the watt hours I'm going to get out of this depends on the capacity of the cells that I'm using. And it seems these are old cells that were harvested from laptop computers. So these cells have a capacity of about 1700 milliamps or 1.7 amp hours in them. So if I put a whole bunch of those together, I'll have enough capacity to cut my lawn and then some. So just going to be an interesting little experiment, which I think will turn into be a usable tool. All for free. These batteries I got for free. Had to do a lot of work to harvest them. And we'll put them into a pack. See what we get. All right, so what I have laid out here are the cells. Individual cells are going to comprise 7 parallel cells of 18 cells per megacell, call it that. I've sorted the batteries too. I had previously gone through and labeled every battery to indicate the capacity. So I have kind of the number of the cell. In this case, this is cell number 228. It has a capacity of 1.795 milliamps, or 1.75 amps, 1.795 amps, and a full voltage charge of 3.96 volts. So these will be charged up to 3.6 volts per cell. So just kind of measurements that I had done with all of the cells, and what I have done is I have grouped the cells of similar capacity together so that each of these cells of 18 individual cells will have roughly the same capacity, increasing. So down here, these ones have 2 amp hours of power at 3.6 volts. These have 1.8. So considering then the whole battery pack in total will have going off the lowest cell. It's going to have about 32 amp hours at 25 volts or 24 volts. So that's going to be a pretty substantial battery pack. Basically, I could run this lawnmower for 30 hours straight if I chose to do so, but it does mean there's going to be lots of power available for it. I figure too that I'll be able to use this battery pack, take it out of this particular lawnmower and put it into some other device and just kind of use this battery pack in a number of different things. So this is a kind of more of a universal battery pack that I'm putting together. The next challenge that I've got is figuring out an arrangement that'll fit into a space that is basically 6.5 by 7.5 inches, probably 6 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches, and about 5 inches tall. So I'll go off, do some math, come back and figure out how we're going to arrange these, probably in either 3 groups of 6 cells to give us 18, or 2 groups of 9, so it's 2 deep or 3 deep. But I'll come back when I've got that figured out. To get these batteries to fit into a format that I can use, I've printed a little 3D battery holder like this. I've got the bottom one positioned in there, so the batteries are sitting there nicely. Now I need to slip that on there. And of course, print off a whole bunch more. So we'll get the batteries set into these little trays, these little holders, and then we're going to do some spot welding to connect these individual, what will become individual cells, 32 amp hour cells, together. So I'll put these together and come back when we're ready to do some spot welding. Now I have all the cells kind of in their little racks, ready to be spot welded. Some of these holes here needed to be sanded out a little bit, so I did some with a small drum sander on the drill press, and a little touch up with a file if there was still something that was a little snug. So again, these plastic holders are merely to keep the batteries kind of roughly in place while they're being spot welded together. So we'll have one group of, I'm calling them 4 megacells together, and then these 3 megacells, and they'll be sitting one on top of the other. I'll have a plate, probably 1/8 plywood between them, just to provide some insulation. I don't want negative to positive touching here. Yeah, so we'll get them the spot welder on these now, and we'll put them all together. So I've got 2 of the cell packs spot welded together, and what I'm using is some little metal nickel plated strip here. It comes made like this specifically for 18650 cells. So I've cut a strip off and I'm about to put it on here, weld it on here, and I have a little spot welder, little tiny spot welder. It's just fundamentally a lithium battery pack itself, a little bit of electronics inside the case, and a couple electrodes here. You simply press these electrodes on the nickel strip and it'll spot weld it to the battery. So I'll set the camera up so you can see this in action. So I have the strip just sitting on top of this cell pack, and I'm just going to place one electrode on the strip on top of the positive terminal, the other one there, and it should just spot weld. Sometimes it takes a couple hits. And now we'll just go through the rest of the cells. I like to put 4 welds on each one, at least. 4 welds being 2 spots. And that's one strip done, one side done. So I just flip it over, put another strip on the other side, and we have a big cell, which will give us 3.6. Currently, these batteries are fully charged and they're about 3.95, 3.97 volts at 32 amp hours of that. So roughly 32. Okay, so I'll just do up this side and carry on with the remaining 4 that are left. And come back when we're ready to assemble it into a pack. With all of the big cells now connected, forming individual cells, we now need to connect the cells together. So to do that, I'm going to be using this little nickel strip here, and I'm going to cut little pieces that will allow me to join. I'll put 2 strips on here, one here and one here. And then we want to be joining negative to positive. Come down this end. On the other side, we'll join negative to positive. Back at this end, it'll be negative to positive. This is going to have to flip around because what I'm going to do is put this little piece of 1/8 inch plywood as a separator between these 2 cells. This will flip over and sit on top of this pack. And then the whole thing, when fully assembled, will slip into that well. So get on with joining these cells together. Catering in the fact that this will flip over, so this strip here will be a little bit, or these 2 strips will be a little bit longer so they can lift up and fold over. But I'll get all of this stuff put together. These strips will go on. These will be the last ones that I join. So I've got strips joining these 2 cells together here. On the underside, they're joined. Come back down here, they're joined. Down there, underside, they're joined. Come back down here, we're joined. Back down here, underside, they're joined. So this is what we refer to as the most negative terminal. And down here on this underside is the most positive terminal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover this entire surface here with some, I'm going to use duct tape, then set this on top of it, cover this surface with duct tape, flip it over, setting on top of here. And then we'll do the same thing with duct tape on the other side and cut off these loose ends. I left these a little long on purpose, not really sure why, but I can cut them off now. So we get all this trimmed up. And there is the battery pack fully assembled. Our Anderson connector to connect to the lawnmower. I have one more connection to make, and that will be just tacking these guys onto here. This is the connector that I use to connect to my solar panels. So this solar panel energy will come in here to charge up the battery, and this connector here will go to the BMS on my solar charger. I'll show that in another video. So that's how the cells become balanced and charged. So this is now a solar-driven lawnmower. So I'll plug the battery in. We can see how it works in the lawnmower. And there's the battery placed into the bucket of the lawnmower. Our Anderson connector plugs directly into the Anderson connector on the mower itself. And let's just power this on, see what it looks like.